RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Iron Debate. We are pleased to be joined by our esteemed panel of experts. Joining us from his home in Arizona, Dennis "The Menace" James. Joining us from the Garden State, New Jersey, Guy Cisternino, a.k.a. Quadro. And of course, joining us from Portland, Maine, the man they call the technician, Chris Aceto. And in our Cape Coral studios, our RxMuscle Cape Coral studios, Dave Palumbo. I'm Sadiq Faruqi in the RxMuscle New York studio. So today we're going to talk about the 212 division. We wanted to get an early jump on the conversation for the Olympia, which is, say, 16 weeks away. But there was some controversy this past weekend at the New York Pro, especially in the 212 division, with Ahmad Ashkanani coming out on top over Eduardo Correa. There were a lot of mixed opinions on that final outcome. Dennis, James, let's go to you first on this one. Get your quick thought on what you thought. Obviously, you weren't there, but you saw it on pictures. Your thoughts on what you saw between Ashkanani and Eduardo Correa.
Well, first, let me say thanks to you guys for having me back on here. And just like you said, I wasn't there. I'm just going off pictures and videos. Videos probably a little better than the pictures. But from what I saw, and I'm talking prejudging right now. I'm not even going to the results. From what I saw after prejudging, for me, this was a clear win for Eduardo Correa. I think there was no doubt in my mind that he would win the 212 division. I'm still a little bit baffled how he can be on the outside in the call out and then slowly move them in. You know what I mean? Because it's hard for me to understand to watch the guys do their mandatories, and then you get ready for the first call out and you don't have him right somewhere in the center or at least close to the center from the get-go. So yeah, for me this was a clear-cut win for Eduardo, and Ahmed was a good, it wasn't good Ahmed, but he wasn't anywhere near of his best. I mean, being a runner-up at the Olympia and coming to the New York Pro showed that he probably didn't even have to do, because he's already qualified for the Olympia. So I don't know why he showed up, but I think that showing up the way he did, even though he walked away with the win, I think that wasn't really the best thing for him leading up to the Olympia.
Let's go to Guy Cisternino. Guy, you were there at the show. You've seen Ahmad Ashkanani up close on sharing a stage with him. Your impressions on him, your impressions of Eduardo Correa, and what was a battle of two very, very great 212 Olympia runner-ups.
I mean, listen, when you're talking to a guy who's not the biggest 212, which is me, and I'm a guy of conditioning, you could have all the muscle in the world, but if it's not detailed, what really does that do for bodybuilding? If you can't see separation, muscle fibers, I think one of Ashkanani's back two best poses are his back flat spread, back double bicep, because his back is so big. And I said to Chris, if I had to give Ashkanani a pose, it would have been his back lat spread over Eduardo's, because Eduardo's back lat spread just looked like, it didn't look like as big as it was in the past. But hamstrings, glutes, in the back double bicep with Eduardo, obviously the structural flaws because of his surgeries, but then you can sit there and say, well, Dorian won an Olympia with a torn bicep. And Eduardo obviously got his stuff fixed. But I mean, in every other pose, I mean, even in the poses where Ashkanani's strong suit would be like a side chest with his hamstrings and his chest, I think Eduardo beat him on that pose too. Obviously, I didn't sit where the judges were sitting. I was all the way back working the booth for MFit, or I was backstage handing out awards. Up close, when he was really right in front of me, Ahmad looked better right in front of me than he did on stage and in pictures. But I would have personally had Eduardo winning, just based solely on conditioning, stage presence, performance, night show routine, class. I mean, he was peeled from head to toe. It's hard for me to justify a win on somebody who looked like he needed to diet another 5 or 6 weeks. And let me say this. When I talk, because I know a lot of these bodybuilders can't take fucking constructive criticism because they get butthurt. And I've had friends come at me, oh, I can't believe you said that about me. I said, I'm talking from the fucking physique, not you as a person or your personality. But like I said earlier, if they gave it to Ashkanani over Eduardo for conditioning, then in my opinion, like I said earlier, if that's how the judging went, then I would have given the open to Akeem, because he was the biggest guy on stage and he wasn't the best conditioned, but he was the biggest with okay conditioning. So if that's how you're going to judge bodybuilding, because 212 and open are the same thing. It's not different criteria as far as classic or men's physique or whatever, but that's how once they gave it to Ahmed or Ahmad, I thought that they were going to give it to Akeem based on the judging for the 212, but they didn't. So I was a little confused, but you know, like Chris says, apples and oranges, you know, at the end of the day, you know, when somebody, one judge might like a Marcus Rule over a Phil Heath. That's not who I would choose, but.
Chris, yeah, Dennis, go ahead.
Well, but let's judge them by their, past appearances. You know, if you look at Ahmed, if Ahmed would have been in shape, in really, really good shape, he would walk away hands down, because he's got the size.
Can I ask an honest question, DJ? And this isn't knocking Ahmed, because
I hear you.
I've competed against him, so he's obviously clearly a better bodybuilder than me. But every show he's done, I can't see a fucking difference from the time he won the Arnold to the time he took second at the Olympia to the time he took fifth to the time he won the New York. I don't see a fucking difference in anything from head to toe. He looks the exact same when he took second, fifth, and first. I can't see the difference. I hear you. But what I'm saying is, if I judge him, let's not look at Correa right now and all the other guys on stage. If I look at Ahmad Ashkanani standing up at New York Pro stage, and I compare him to his past appearances, he was better every time before. His strength, like you just pointed out, is his back double biceps and his back lat spread. Yeah. His back double biceps was detailed less. Yes.
He opened up wide, but there was no detail whatsoever. Everybody else in the top 5 had a better back double biceps than Ahmad Ashkanani this time. And don't get me wrong, he is the better bodybuilder if he's in shape, because of the overall size that he brings.
Yes.
His legs, still a little bit undersized. From the side, his legs is crazy. From the front, his legs do not match his upper body. 0 lines in his quads. You know what I mean? You know, and judging by that alone, I think this was his worst showing so far. He was better as an amateur.
He doesn't know how to pose him, right? Because he posted a video on his story this morning flexing his quads, and he had fucking lines going all the way up to his quads. So is it maybe he just doesn't know how to pose him properly?
Well, some people don't pose enough, as you all know, and once they get on stage and they stop holding the legs, they're going to lose it. They fade, and they can't.
When you worked with Beto, I beat Beto a couple times, and because he was having trouble holding his poses in the beginning, he couldn't. He was very winded, couldn't hold his legs. He kept relaxing. So could it just be he needs to practice posing more?
Absolutely. I think that's exactly what it is.
Chris, let's go to you, because you were there. Give your assessment. Obviously, you've seen Ashkanani on stage many times, and the reason we're bringing him up, obviously highly critical of him, is because he is a former Arnold 212 champion. He is a 2-time, if I'm not mistaken, 2-time Olympia runner-up. So obviously, there are very high expectations. Your assessment as far as what you saw this past Saturday night, as opposed to his previous showings. Whereas Guy was saying, like, he didn't really see much of a difference. But again, you were there Saturday night. Your assessment as compared to past appearances for Ashkanani.
I mean, I think that he's been in better condition, but he's never been in. I mean, we've never seen him in like rock hard condition. That's not his calling card. His calling card, I guess, is which he brought here is fullness, roundness, size. I think it's just, I think we're mixing up the issue. I just think that he went up against somebody that he's not used to going up against. Eduardo Correa, who brings a unique package when he's at his all-time best. And that's what he went up against. You got a pretty much same old, and I don't mean that in a negative way. You got Ahmad Ashkanani, round, full, big, lacking separation, but he's always lacked separation. Maybe a little less separation here, but not that much, because I think the contrast where he got exposed for the lack of separation is in the contrast. You know, his lack of separation or his typical physique versus somebody who's just blazingly peeled, and that's what Eduardo was known for. It makes you sit up and say, wow, there's no separation. I think if he was competing against, let's say,
Charles Dixon.
You took the words right out of my mouth. The all-time best Charles Dixon we've ever seen, the fullest we've ever seen, and the tightest we've ever seen. You just hand it to Ashkanani and say he's bigger than Dixon, even though Dixon's, you know, rock hard, stranded glutes, good hams. It's not apples and oranges. It's who you're standing against. And that contrast, I think, was very visible where, you know, besides people saying, wow, look how great Eduardo looks, by him looking that detailed and still being round, it makes you start to get critical of the other person he's competing against. I mean, anyone at their best standing next to Eduardo that night, you know, we exposes themselves to some criticism. Remember, Eduardo at his best has been, you know, push flex to the, you know, we know that, to the brink.
14, yeah.
2014, I mean, flex is not delirious. Ask him, how close was that show? You know, when it came down to 2, that was a show where Flex didn't know if he won or not. You know, a lot of people, the chatter was after prejudging that Eduardo was going to win. And I only bring that up is because at your best, Eduardo is dangerous.
You take Eduardo out of the show, and it's Ahmad's all day long. There would have been nobody touching him.
So, Dave, let me go to you real quick because I wanted to advance the conversation again, talking about the early favorites for this 212 title, which obviously Flex Lewis vacated. Let's get your quick thoughts, Dave, as far as what you saw. Obviously, you weren't there. You saw it in pictures and videos. What you saw out of Ahmad Ashkanani and maybe how he compared to previous showings, and then I guess the return of Eduardo Correa and what he showed in ultimately a runner-up finish.
Right off the bat, when you have to start making excuses and looking for reasons why maybe Ashkanani won, that's a bad sign. That usually means, well, you know what, he didn't deserve to win. Now we're looking for, well, maybe his back wanted for, you know, it should be clear cut. I mean, I think that, I mean, you don't have to be there. This is such a clear cut decision that you don't have to be there to see it. I mean, I know I trust Guy's eye. I trust Chris Aceto's eye probably more than anyone. He was sitting right in the front. I don't believe that the Ashkanani should have won the show, obviously. I don't think anyone in their right mind would. I mean, there's no conditioning that Ashkanani brought to that stage. I think he has been better before. I actually think the first time we saw him on a pro stage, he was the best he ever was. And I think he wasn't as big, but he lost that conditioning, that crispness that he had then. And he never really came in at his best after that. And I think this was not necessarily his worst, but it wasn't his best. I think the problem here was he almost looks like something was done to him the last couple days that maybe screwed him up, because now all of a sudden we're seeing detail and pictures. This is not a lack of posing practice. This is something that was they tried on him and it didn't work, and he came in too big. Matter of fact, if you remember Ramy last year at the Olympia, he looked similar, right? Almost like too inflated, the muscles, where there was no definition showing, almost like a swelling effect that just didn't look right to me.
One thing he said, Dave, was that when we were backstage, I was talking to Ahmad, because listen, me and Ahmad are friends. We text, we go back and forth. That's why it's hard for a competitor to give opinions on friends, but that I just try to take their personality and who they are as far as in my life. But he said that he was staying in the city and he was eating at Cheesecake Factory every day. And I don't know if he goes, oh, I was eating a cheesecake and getting all my meals. And I'm like, I don't know if you were eating. Because the week of, like, I'll use a meal prep company.
Yeah.
But the week of the show, everything comes out of my fucking fridge and I cook it myself because I don't want to risk if there's salt on it, if they add oil to the rice.
Right. So
it could have been he was eating 6 times a day at Cheesecake Factory.
Guy, if you're friends with the guy, why wouldn't you give him why wouldn't you give the guy your meal service people?
He didn't fucking ask me.
Well, maybe he didn't know. You hear the guy telling you he's eating a Cheesecake Factory. Why did you tell him, hey, call my meal prep person?
He told me he was here from May 12th. I go, Ahmad, why didn't you let me know? You've been here for fucking 2 weeks and didn't tell me? I'm not a mind reader. Listen, ask Chris. And if there's anybody in this industry that goes out of their way for other competitors, I do it all.
No, I know you do. I know you do. You know what? But getting back to what I was saying, first of all, I agree with you. You know, I even said this to Chris the other day. I said, you know, I really like Ahmad. Every time I see him, he's very polite and very, you know, very nice and respectful to us. But the bottom line is with judging physiques here, Eduardo Correa, you know, won this show. I mean, there's no doubt. And matter of fact, and I'm not just saying this because I helped the guy, Kareth Baggio, who came in third, should have beat Ashkanani. I mean, he was way more conditioned than him. I think at a certain point, if you don't bring a certain level of conditioning, I don't care who you are, you should not be in consideration for a top finish. It's just not right to the other competitors, and that's all there is to it. So, I mean, we could try to sit here and figure out why Ashkanani won, but we're not going to figure it out because he just didn't deserve it physique-wise. If he won, it was because he was riding the coattails of his second places at the Olympia and his Arnold Classic victory, and that's really what it amounts to. I mean, there's no disputing that. Now, going forward, is he should he be considered a serious threat to the Olympia throne in September? I would have to say yes.
That's a different story.
He's absolutely a threat to the Olympia, but he needs to be in shape.
Yeah.
Ahmed in shape is going to be dangerous. And like I said, if he was in shape at the New York Pro, he would have killed his lineup easy. But like you said, I also thought that if it wasn't, what's the third place guy's name?
Kareth Baggio.
Kareth.
Yeah. If it wasn't for his really, really bad case,
I agree.
I think he should have beat him too.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
So
I would have had him in second too, because you know he was peeled, he was in great shape, he had good lines. I mean, he ended up in third, even with the guy. You know what I'm saying? So
he's thrilled. Yeah. He's thrilled. Believe me, it's his first big placing.
Yeah,
you know, so.
I mean, like and I had him second. If I would, listen. I'm judging by pictures. I wasn't there, so I mean, I'm just going off of what I know. Looking up on the internet. So yeah, I mean, it was for me. It was clear cut, Eduardo. I feel bad for Eduardo right now for losing this show. Not because there's no other opportunity for him to qualify, which there is, and I'm sure he's going to go to Puerto Rico and kill it. Yeah, but I feel that it's just if you're the best guy on that stage, obviously, and I don't know about the crowd reaction, but I would assume that everybody went nuts.
It went booed. The whole crowd booed.
So what does that tell you? You know what I'm saying? Not everybody can be wrong. So you know what I mean? And that's why I feel bad for the man, because he hadn't been on stage in 3 years. He busted his ass. You can tell he busted his ass. And for me, he deserved this win clear, and no doubt about it.
Sid, talk about the results of the poll you put up.
Well, I mean, look, we put up a picture yesterday of Ahmad Ashkanani. Again, just to make this conversation about what we're going to see in about 16 weeks on the Olympia stage with that vacated title. And we put the picture up of Ahmad Ashkanani and asked, is this going to be the next 212 Olympia title holder? And I mean, it was practically a unanimous no. I mean, Tyler, if you want to get a screenshot of that, we have probably in the neighborhood of like 400 to 500 comments. And I mean, it was universally no. Now, obviously, you had fans starting to tag their favorites, and that's where we transition to the next part of the conversation, and that is some of the names. Because again, when you think about the 212 Olympia title, it is vacated, and all the top contenders at once upon a time were either runner-up, third place, and now they're going to make their push to take the title vacated by Flex Lewis. That is why so much of the conversation is about Ahmad Ashkanani, because he burst onto the scene in 2016. He won his pro card, won the Tampa Pro, was phenomenal in his Olympia debut, and then, of course, the next year winning the Arnold Classic. Last year, however, there was some slight controversy. Derek Lunsford taking second place. Many thought Kamal Elgargni should have taken second place. So you have this whole crowd of competitors finish second, third, and now they're going to be the Olympia title contender. So actually, Chris, I wanted to go back to you about something, because, we talked about Eduardo Correa, and I think lost in all of this is a remarkable comeback story in and of itself, and the fact that we talked about the comeback last Olympia. Dave interviewed him at the Olympia Expo, I believe at the Black Skull booth, talking about a potential comeback and what he was doing towards his comeback, and now we see him on that New York Pro stage. What do you rate as Eduardo Correa's prospects of maybe jumping back into that conversation for 212 Olympia title contender?
Is that for me, Sid?
Yes.
I mean, he has to be considered. Well, here's why he's dangerous. One is because his great level of conditioning. Two, his experience. You know, he's been a top guy before, right up there to win the show. And then 3, don't forget the New York Pro. You weighed in at 10 and went on stage, you know, thereafter. So there is a marked difference between weigh-in in. If the weigh-in is the morning of the Mr. Olympia, you're going to see pretty much, you know, same as you might see at the New York Pro. But if the weigh-in is a day or 2 days before the Mr. Olympia, then I think that Eduardo could be not significantly better, but definitely better to the trained eye. Like, wow, this is better than New York. So, I mean, at a very minimum, you're going to see the same, and the same should be, you know, a problem for the other guys to deal with. And then, you know, if you weigh in earlier, he's going to be even more dangerous. And just keep in mind, you know, the lighting at the show is not the best, because I actually think the level of conditioning that he had was, you know, guys said, yeah, I saw Ahmad Ashkanani backstage. Well, I saw, you know, Eduardo Correa also backstage, or, you know, in the hotel room. And I don't think the pictures justify his level of conditioning here at all. I think he was far harder than the picture show and the video shows. And I think the lighting, you know, at the Olympia will be, you know, more complimentary than it was here. I mean, it'll be more complimentary for everybody.
I don't know if that's true, because I actually heard they're doing the 212 in the Expo prejudging and night show back to back, so that might not have fucking happened at all.
Well, how about this? 212 on the Olympia stage? The final?
I heard from, I'm not going to say who, but a former Mr. Olympia that they heard that they're doing 212 prejudging at the Expo back to back.
No way, I don't believe it. I'm calling Dan Solomon right now. Call him.
Dennis James, let's go to you on this one. What are some of the names that jump out at you? Obviously, last year we talked about Derek Lunsford finished second. And when we put up that post on Instagram, that was the name that got the most traction out of the whole thread. Your opinion?
I said it last year before the 212 Olympia. I said Derek Lunsford's going to be the biggest threat to Flex Lewis. He ended up in second, which I think was fair and square. I think Lunsford has the complete package. He has overall beautiful shape. He has all the body parts. If he breaks the condition, I think he's going to be the front runner at this year's Mr. Olympia. Now, and Ahmad Ashkanani can only threaten him if he's in really, really, really good condition. That would be the only way. Legs separated, which makes him look bigger than they are when there's no separation. Because when there's no separation, they're always going to look a little small. So if he can fix that, he's going to be a serious threat and he's going to be fighting. But other than that, I think Derek Lunsford is the man to beat at this year's 212 Olympia. Absolutely.
Guy?
Well, I wasn't there last year, but I'll be there this year. So, but last year I actually talked to Derek on the phone, and Derek will attest that I said this. Because me and Derek, you know, I think Derek's a good kid. We're friends. And Derek asked me what I thought, and I said, honestly, bro, I said, I thought you were flat. I thought you were really stringy. I go, I don't think you were as full. I said, I would have had you in third. I said, I've seen you better. He looked very, he just looked very drawn out and not full, and he wasn't popping. And I told him that I think that wasn't his best package, and I told him that right to his face. But I thought Kamal should have had third. But with Flex being gone, I don't think anybody is a front runner based on their past showings, because now that Flex is gone, I think if people are going to try to come in differently, because I think everybody was trying to match Flex on conditioning, and now you have Ahmad showing up full at shows winning 212. You don't know what these people are going to try to do to beat Ahmad. But I think your front runners are Derek, are Kamal, are Ashkanani. I would not count out David Henry whatsoever.
Sure.
And I'm doing Chicago, and if I win Chicago, I mean, I beat David before. Kamal I've only competed against once. I've never competed against Derek. So I don't know how my physique matches with them. Are they bigger than me? Yeah. But, you know, I see the way Derek trains, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but I think that whole slow and controlled acronym training that he does is only going to last his ass so long until he actually has to fucking man up and grab some like a fucking bodybuilder rather than training scientifically. I think that science shit is only going to fucking last him so long before he starts losing ground with other competitors.
Dave.
Well, I'll have to say this though. For him winning the USA's like what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and being second place at the Olympia, I mean,
it's fucking
whatever
great.
he's doing is working for him.
He's got more. Listen, he's got nothing to be fucking upset about. I mean, for winning USA's, winning a show, going to Olympia, taking second. I've never taken second to Olympia, so all the fucking props to him. I'm just saying, if he wants to win, he's got to figure out a way to come in where I think I thought he needed to be way better than at the Olympia to beat Flex. And if Kamal comes in shape and Eduardo comes in shape and I come in shape and Ashkanani comes in shape, he's going to have a fucking problem.
Well, I was there last year. There was no way beating Flex any of these guys.
So that was
Flex I think Flex was at his all-time best last year, and that's why everybody looked just a little different. But just take Flex out. He's not there. So I believe that if Derek, and he's doing a smart thing, he's not competing until the Olympia, which is smart. I think Ashkanani, I think that was a mistake coming to the New York Pro, not looking his best. Number one. So he's not really putting his name on the map. You know what I'm saying? Because he won the New York Pro, but look at the controversy going. I think that's going to hurt him just a little bit. So I think that Correa, if he wins Puerto Rico this weekend, qualifies, I think his stake's going to be higher than Ahmad Ashkanani's.
Dave, your thoughts on the front runner for the 212 vacated crown?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Guy. I thought that Lunsford really got worse. We saw pictures of him like 16 or 18 weeks out. And this guy looked like he was going to, beat Flex. I mean, let's face it. And then he went down and started doing some of that weird training like Guy was talking about. I don't know if that has anything to do with it or if it just was an over-dieting situation. But he definitely looked smaller. His legs looked good, but his upper body definitely got smaller, and he looked like stringy. I don't even know. I think Boston Lloyd was making fun of him, or one of these guys was making fun of him, and they were right. He just like shrunk up, and I don't know what went wrong. When he's at his best, he's very dangerous, and I think that he definitely has to be considered a front runner. But I don't know if it was the training or an over-dieting situation, but something went wrong last year for sure. The fact that he got second just tells you how good he is, because he wasn't at his best and he finished second. Ashkanani, let's face it, in the world of the Olympia, I've never seen a Mr. Olympia not have legs, good legs. He's gonna have trouble winning that Olympia with no legs. They like legs, they like backs. He's got the back. I think a guy that's very dangerous in this lineup that no one talks about and no one is really mentioning a lot about is a guy who's very much like Dexter. He's an older guy, and he's a guy who's consistently always good, and that's Kamal Elgargni. I think he's the most dangerous guy there because he's the most consistent. When we talk about handicapping these shows, we always imagine the guys in their best shape ever, but that never happens. We never see a show where everyone's at their best. So, given a scenario where maybe everyone's a little off, you never know. Kamal could walk out of there with that title like he did at the Arnold Classic. So it's an interesting. It's going to be an interesting lineup because there's no actual prohibitive favorite here. It's like, well, who's going to show up at their best? This one's got potential, that one's got potential, but this one's not consistent, that guy's not consistent. The only consistency is Kamal and actually Eduardo Correa, who we never really see out of shape. So in my mind, those guys, if I'm a betting man, I'm going with those guys as my favorites, although I think Derek, the youth on his side is going to definitely serve him well.
Chris, talk a little bit more about Kamal. Obviously, he suffered an injury pre-Olympia. I believe it was his calf or ankle, if you could correct that. But he burst onto the scene last year, obviously winning the Arnold Classic, kind of surprising a lot of pundits, and then, of course, putting on a stellar showing at the Olympia. Many thought he could have finished in second. What qualities do you see him? Obviously, right now, he's posting all these videos during Ramadan. He's, training late at night, but he's posting all his training. So he's building up some hype for himself. Handicap of Kamal Elgargni, last year's third-place finisher, as we look 16 weeks ahead.
I think that Kamal, his calling card is, he's got good shape, great shape, and deep separation between the muscle, and he keeps doing more than really well, beating a lot of people, simply because he's put together right. He's got big giant delts, big triceps, big full packs. So standing relaxed with crazy midsection, and his legs aren't the best, but they got 10 times more separation than Ahmed. Standing in the lineup, he sticks out. So that's a big plus for him. And then when he hits his shots, he's 45. Been training since he was 18. So when he hits his shots, there's so much muscle maturity there that you end up, keep coming back and looking at him. And that's how he really won the Arnold, because it's funny, they didn't, at the Arnold,
he was 46 when he won the Arnold. He's got to be older than that now.
Yeah, that's right. So he might be, he's 47, 48. So when he won the Arnold, they started out judging him like at the end, they moved him. And he got lucky. The last call out, a few calls, they asked for that last call. They put him in the middle in pre-judging. And by default, he's more conditioned than this guy. He's got better flow than this guy. He's not small. He's big enough to carry the show. And he wins that show. And that's how the Olympia played out, too. I mean, I think that, for example, Lunsford last year next to him was like a bigger guy. But in terms of muscle detail, muscle maturity, what you see in the poses, I think on that day, Kamal readily beat him. So, I mean, he's a threat too. I don't think there's anyone who's going to go into that show and just slam the door right from the get-go. I think we're going to see a lot of comparisons, lots. And at the end of the day, it may be a show of least amount of weaknesses. So you've got, everyone has their own weaknesses, and I think that, including Kamal.
Let me.
Kamal may have the least amount of weaknesses of top 4 or 5 people.
Let me throw one name out there that, in all likelihood, will not make it to the Olympia. But if he does, you could consider him to be an instantaneous wild card in this whole picture, and that is Hadi Choopan, who was, of course, denied because of the travel ban, unable to enter America, so obviously unable to take that Olympia stage. Dennis James, from what you have seen of Hadi Choopan, I'm not sure if you ever saw him in person, given his profile, do you think that's an instant disruptor into that title contender talk?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I'll tell you what. I saw him, I was hosting the show in San Marino when he played second place, right behind Cedric McMillan, where I thought he could have easily walked away with the win there, too. Because he was 211 pounds. He looked like he was 230. You know what I mean? He has this crazy thick, striated muscle that stands out on that stage. He beat guys like Brandon Kirby. You know what I mean? At that show. So if he would ever get a visa, it would definitely make the 212 very, very interesting. And it would probably be more interesting that year than the Open because of Hadi Choopan. You know what I'm saying? So he could instantly not only be a wild card, I think he would instantly be fighting for the title.
Quadro.
I don't want to compete against him. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think Hadi's a fucking freak. I've seen him in person, and I look at him and I'm like, how does this guy weigh 212? Like, it's baffling to me. But he does. I mean, listen, a lot of these guys, like, I was talking to, who was I talking to? I was talking to Eduardo backstage, and I was like, dude, the only OGs back from, like, the 202 days, you got me, David Henry, Kamal. There's not a lot of older guys. Here, I'm not delusional. I had double fucking shoulder surgery. The past 2 years for me has been a mess. If I make it to the Olympia and I take top 5, I'll be fucking happy because I'm just trying to, come back from shit that people thought I could never come back from because I enjoy working out and that's why I'm a bodybuilder. So I enjoy the process of getting ready for shows. So, do I think I will ever beat Derek? Is it a possibility? Yeah. But the guys like Derek and Hadi and all the younger guys coming up, when you get older, 37, 38, your body starts taking tolls that it didn't when it was in younger 20s. So I think the top guys at the Olympia, I think you guys already kind of nailed it. I don't really think that you're going to see, I think it's going to be David up there. I think it's going to be Derek. I think it's going to be Ahmad. I think it's going to be Kamal. There's guys that are just genetically that good. And I think some of those guys that I see train, if they actually took their head out of their ass and fucking trained like men.
Like who?
What? Which ones? Dude, I see guys fucking training and they're doing like lightweight. I mean, I'm not bashing him, but I trained with Samir Fruity out in Dubai, and he was doing bent over dumbbell rows, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't go heavier than this." And I'm like, "You're 135 on the bar." He's like, "Yeah, I don't go heavy." So I'm like, damn, like you look like that and you train like that, and I train the way I tried training, like, it doesn't work for me. Like people make fun of me, like, why do you train so fucking heavy with bad shoulders? Because that's what I respond to. I can't change what my body responds to. I wish I could train fucking light and make the gains that these guys need, but I don't, and I have to bust my ass for every fucking inch that I gain on my body. But there's a lot of guys there's a lot of bodybuilders that work out to compete, and there's not a lot of bodybuilders that love working out, and that's why they compete, and it shows on fucking stage. Samir Trudy, in my opinion, has one of the most pleasing physiques, but he just never comes in peeled to the bone, and I chalk that up to he doesn't train hard enough.
Interesting. Chris Aceto, from what you've seen out of Hadi Choopan, do you think that is a potential wild card should he ever get his visa to the United States?
Yeah, I support Trump 100% on this ban. Of course he's a threat. You know, I mean, you know what DJ said? I know Brandon's improved a lot since then, but he still did beat Brandon. And I know Brandon was, you know what I mean? It's just, that says it all. You know, he's dangerous as can be.
Final thought. Yeah, Dennis.
He's literally even crazier in person.
Yeah.
My question, Dennis, my question to you is, how would Hadi do in open shows if he started competing open, overseas? Obviously can't come to the U.S., but you think he would win open shows?
100%.
I think he can be similar to Flex Lewis in the open.
Yes.
Really?
Yes. I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
Because he has. Let me. How can I put this?
He has no flaws.
Flex is the pleasing guy. He has a pleasing physique. Hadi has freak factor.
Right.
All over him. Back, chest, quads, freak factor. In the open, he would do crazy too. I guarantee you that.
Just ask yourself this question. Nick, give me a flaw Hadi has. Go.
Passport.
He's controlling his waist now. He can even do a vacuum.
Passport. Unbelievable. Dave, let's get a final word out of you on Hadi Choopan as sort of a wild card in that 212 should he ever get to the country.
It's a shame, we're not going to ever see that probably, at least not in the next, year or so. I don't know. I can't imagine, back in the day when we used to have, block the Russians and everything like that. We had all these Eastern Bloc bullshit. All the athletes always never had a problem competing. I don't know. Since when did athletes get blocked from coming into the country? I always thought that there was always an open exchange, for athletic competition. It's really sad that he can't make it here. If I were Hadi, like Dennis said, I would just go open, man, and just win every European, every other show aside from the U.S., and just show everyone that, I'm the best bodybuilder out here that no one will let compete, and he'll become like a hero almost. I just think that the 212 is too small for him, even though he fits into the division. I think he's got, like I said, he got the wow factor, Dennis said. So it's a shame. I think if he came into this 212 Olympia, I think it would be over for everyone else. I do.
Well, Dave, quick thought, because this is something that we debated for a long time, how Flex Lewis would translate over to the open class. And 2-3 years ago, when we talked about it as almost like just a rumor, it won't happen, and obviously now it is happening. Hadi Choopan, it is an interesting conversation. Do you think he translates better? Dennis points to the free factor.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Dennis. I think that he has, in the open classes, the fans and the judges like to see density, thickness, freakiness, graininess. He's got all the wow. Even though he's not the tallest guy on stage, he's got so much wow, it pops out at you. That's why William Bonac is so good in the open. He's really a 212 guy in height and stature, but he has so much muscle on his body that he overwhelms that he creates a presence on stage, and I think that's why he's there. I think Flex Lewis has freak factor in his conditioning, but I think he still, mass-wise, doesn't necessarily have the freak factor. Maybe that's why he took 2 years off, to make sure he comes in with the freak factor. Yeah. So I think, that Hadi could certainly be someone that adds a level of excitement to either the 212 or the open. It's just a shame that we can't get this guy in the country,
So that is a very, very early primer to what we should be looking forward to at the 2019 Olympia 212 Challenge. Of course, the title vacated by Flex Lou. There's going to be a lot more conversation on that. Obviously, we're going to see Eduardo Correa this weekend in Puerto Rico, where we'll see how he comes in then and what the conversation is going to be shifting after his performance this weekend. That's going to do it for this episode of Iron Debate. Special thanks to Dennis James, Guy Cisternino, Chris Aceto, Dave Palumbo, and of course, our producer, Tyler Shore. A lot more to come between now and the rest of the contest season, leading all the way into September and the Olympia. Keep it locked to RxMuscle.com.